Today I'm hoping I might be able to organize my thoughts a little more than I usually do, or than I have been on these past few. But, eh, I wouldn't count on it right now. But, I did a little more research to see if there was a better way to go about doing these, and I guess the first thing, I guess separating it into categories, and then the first thing is just all the anxieties and stresses that have been on my mind, and all the things that got me worried, past, present, and future right now, and then getting into something maybe a little more hopeful, and that could be my progress. But mm, this morning I woke up with an awful dream. It stressed me out immensely, and I wrote it down before I forgot. So I'm gonna put it here so I can delete it from the text and move on from it, from what I wrote. So I had a dream that started normal, like a normal day. Only over the course of the dream, I started to be stalked by a woman who wanted to get inside my house. She also kept talking about my pets and kept trying to find ways to keep the front door open. She had even cut holes in one of my shades at some point, so that the shade couldn't cover the windows, so that she could look inside. But it wasn't complete. She only managed to cut a little bit of the shades, but most of it was still intact by the time I became aware of what was happening in the dream. I managed to get the screen door closed, and even the front door. She also wanted me to leave and come outside, leaving the place unprotected and unlooked out for. But I used a quick chance to close the front door proper. She tried to keep that from happening, but wasn't able to keep me from closing the door all the way. Right before I closed the door all the way, she said under her breath about going to disconnect my satellite. Which I guess could also mean like internet and connection and stuff like that. And over the course of the dream in the background, it was slowly getting nighttime outside. And by the end of the dream, and by the time I managed to close the door, it was night. Like pitch dark. Pitch black. And I was drawing blinds to cover windows, turning off lights, and doing anything I could to cover up the inside of the house from her being able to see inside. By the end of it, I realized I should call the police, but the number wouldn't call the police. When I looked up, what's the number for the police, I would get recent movie news and results for things like bands or entertainment that had the word police in it. Or I'd get a number, but the number would constantly change every time I would try to look for it or look at it to enter it into my phone. Or the number would be for a hyper-specific unit of law enforcement that would be completely unhelpful in this specific situation. And sometimes both at the same time. By the end of the dream, I decided that it didn't matter which branch of law enforcement I called, maybe they could connect me to another one. So I asked Google, call the police. And the Google only pulled up more search results of just things that had the word police in it, but not actually the police. By then my heart was beating and I was filled with a lot of anxiety. And then I was startled awake by a phone call. A phone call from the person who had been, who had left us here and had, the person I'd referenced in previous journals who would manipulate and make threats, and recently just decided to abandon us here and leave us here, and would, torment the narcissistic person I was talking about before, who would emotionally manipulate and gaslight and all that. I don't have to explain it right this instant, but that part got me. Was that what woke me up after a dream like that? Was a call from that person who had made physical threats and things like that, and that was the call that woke me up. So it felt like, oh man, this is this is oddly connected feeling, oddly poetic. That's the call I get in the morning, and that's the call that wakes me up. But and when I woke up, my body was and my mind was still in call the police mode. Look for your phone, call the police quick, because I didn't get to fulfill it in the dream. And then I woke up, and I almost reached for my phone to dial in 911, and then I stopped myself, and then I remembered I'm awake now, and there's no reason at the moment to call the police. It's always so awkward trying to describe the other person over dialogue like this on this journal. I guess the way I'd summarize it is mentally abusive, emotionally abusive, relationally abusive, verbally. Threatens at times to escalate it to something physical. But, yeah, that scared me. That scared the heck out of me. And especially that I got a call from the person immediate. That was the thing that woke up the dream as I was looking to call the police in my dream. And then I woke up and it was like, oh man, I gotta call. It certainly didn't help. That was the person calling me while my system was on like red alert from the dream. Like, call the call law enforcement, call someone. And I stopped myself short, thankfully. I was stressed out for like 2 or 3 more hours after that. And then I just sat back and rested and let my heart calm down. And then it went back to normal, and I was able to breathe easy after that. The thing about describing this person is that my brain will be like, "Oh, you're being exaggerated. Oh, you're making that up. You're making it something it isn't." And then I have to stop myself and be like, "No, no, it really, no, it's that bad. It is as bad as that is what it is. There is no sugarcoating it, or I mean, that is what has happened. You're all right. You're not making it up." And I guess you don't have a dream like that, get incredibly stressed out and see a phone number and still continue to think that the dream is going for a few seconds. But I calmed down, and the dream ended, and it was all good. My cats were safe. I'm safe. My blinds were intact. There was no one outside. There was no one outside stalking me or anything like that. I was all good. All good. Right now I'm in that calm in the storm moments. And sometimes I when you're in that calm in the storm moments, you can trick yourself into thinking that, oh, things are changing, everything is good with the other person. No, it's just that they're not around and they're not exposed to you. And for a second, you feel like, am I being unfair? And then, in a twisted way, almost thankfully to draw me back into reality, the other person will do something. Even if right now they're being calm and they're at a distance miles away, that lets me know, like, oh no, this is still this is still the same person. Nothing has changed. And basically today's was the person called and asked, like, what are you doing? And then I said, oh, I'm trying to study for my driver's test, which I was studying for my driver's test at the time. And then all of a sudden the person starts telling me um all kinds of stuff about, like, how jobs will turn you away, and you can never get a job or make a living if you don't have a license, even if you have an ID, and started telling me about all these ways that, like, you get disqualified and you lose all benefits and you have no opportunities unless you do this hyper specific thing, which from my experience I already know that isn't true. I've already lived this long, even with no chance for a driver's license, and I've still managed to survive off of having an ID. And I've never seen anyone who had a problem with an ID. In fact, they don't even really ask, from all the places I've been, they don't even ask if you have a license. They just ask if you have any documentation. And you just pulled out the ID. I mean, you don't even have to tell them if you have a license or you don't. But yeah, the person suddenly started telling me how people don't accept IDs, or people who don't have licenses, and that they can fire you at any time, or won't accept you for the job. And suddenly started pressuring, like, you need to have you already taken the test and all that, and started, like, repeating it as if it was their idea. You need to study for the test. uh, you already know there's consequences if you fail it, and it was all like that kind of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, I just told the person, that I'm studying for the driving test, and I just started studying it for it relatively recently, and now the person is suddenly purposely trying to be discouraging, or taking low blows or shots, or uh, doomsaying all of a sudden over the phone. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, this, all right. And then I just sort of tuned it out and kept studying for my. I just tuned it out and kept studying what was in front of me for the driver's test. It's like, all right, I gotta keep going on this while this person is talking about some hypothetical situation that's like nothing but failure, and people rejecting my means and all that, and failure and all this. And I'm just like, I haven't even like I'm still getting through this like first category. Meanwhile, the person is implying like, "Why haven't you taken the test now? Have you taken it already?" And started trying to pressure me like, "Why aren't you doing this fast enough?" And I've just I'm not responding to any of it. I'm just ignoring it and keeping on studying with my keeping on studying the manual that's right in front of me. So I get, I keep going on that, and the person eventually runs out of steam and just goes, okay, bye, and then hangs up. And then I'm just like, what was that? That was interesting. No real encouragement or anything, just lots of low blows and shots and things like that at me. Part ways taking shots at me for the situation I already know I'm in. I don't have a vehicle that I can't drive that limits me, obviously. That's why I'm studying for the driving test. But the person keeps like trying to find a nail to dig in, you know? And I'm just confused about like I know why the person is doing it. I guess to say I'm not confused why the person is doing it. In more of a comedic way, I'm confused, but in a realistic way, I know exactly why the person is doing it and why they're framing it this way and telling me how many chances someone with no car loses and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, this is very unhelpful. So I'm just gonna keep studying. That's what's gonna help. So I just kept on until they hung up, and then later, suddenly the person called me back again, and one of the jobs I applied for, the person suddenly called me back and said, by the way, in the employee handbook, what does it say about hairstyles for men? And she almost says hairstyles for men, but then the person, they quickly stop saying men and replace it with the word little boys and children. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. uh, by the way, in the employee handbook, what does it say about hairstyles for little boys, little children? And I was like, oh, and so you switch that out at the last second. More little pot shots and like quick jabs to try and get at me. More attempts at quick jabs and pot shots at me over the phone. And so I just I just go back to what I was doing, which was putting groceries away. And well, the person talks in the background, and the person, they just started talking down to me about, once again, just like the threat of getting fired and not knowing anything and being rejected and isolated or let go of, and uh, started talking to me about all these other contexts of like, in this job, and in this job they demand this, and in this job you can't be wearing that, and in this job, and each one is like a doom scenario, and if you were in this job they would never allow you to do this, and that, and I'm just I'm just putting eggs away and juice and you know Brussels sprouts and stuff like that, and just putting it all in the fridge. And then the person's saying all this stuff, even though in the interview the person has already seen me, not even just an interviewer, person who has that, the actual manager has already seen me. and saw my hairstyle, and it was perfectly fine, but the person is purposely trying to create doubt and anxiety and worry. And the person literally just calls to do that. The person calls specifically for that purpose, just to do that, and then I just stated very calmly, like, I just stated very calmly, um, according to the employee, you know, as I've already discussed with the manager, and as I've already researched in the employee handbook, my dress code and my, you know, I don't know what to call it, um, cosmetic appearance, I had the word then, I'm blanking on it now, as I force myself to try and think about it. But everything that I'm wearing and my hairstyle, everything is according is in fitting with what their standards and their quality, and I'm all set. And the person started to talk a little more nervously after that, and then I said, if there's anything else, I'll discuss it with the manager. If I see the manager again. Yeah. If I get the job, I'll discuss it with the manager. We've already been talking and things like that. We've already had back and forths, and so far so good. This is all that was mentioned to me, and so on and so forth. I didn't say a lot of that. What I mainly was just said, like, my outfit and my appearance are good. That was pretty much it. Just blank, flat statement like that. And the person, is talking down to me the whole time, condescending and saying in a very, patronizing type tone, like, well, if they don't like it, I could always take you to the barber tomorrow and get you a haircut. And I'm not trying to make their voice sound worse. That's actually how the person was talking at the time. I don't mean to be rude or make the person sound bad. That is just how the person was talking at the time. And keep in mind, the person had already said this, was already saying this well after I had stated plainly first time that everything was set up and, all good. But the person really, I can tell the person really wanted to try and rub something in, or, was trying to make a point, or, I mean, the first moment when you swap out the word men with little boys and children, and it's like, oh, okay. So you're trying to degrade me over the phone, and you're trying to undermine me at this moment, and you're very purposefully choosing not to refer to someone as an adult or a man or things like that. So I was like, okay. So I just let the person talk, and eventually I very calmly said, can't talk right now. I've got to continue to put the groceries away, and then I'm going to have to move on to this task. Is there anything else? And then the person pretty much immediately stopped and in a sort of fake cheerful tone was like, okay, bye. And then hung up the phone, and then that was that. And that was that interaction. Yeah. Just kind of rude. that's that's the main thing with that. That's the main takeaway. It's just kind of rude, but I'm letting that go now. Not letting it get under my skin or anything like that. Just saying it, getting it out of my mind so I don't have to dwell on it anymore. You know, it's out, and now I just don't have to think about it. So just letting that go. But, yeah, I'm not. In terms of future worries or anxieties or interactions, like. Oh, that's right. That's right. I did get a. Yesterday I mentioned how one source I got, wasn't able to help me at all, but they were able to just. They said they were going to get someone else from a different department to message me back, and I did get that message back. And it was more referrals. It was more referrals, and not only that, but it was more referrals to things I had already done, because where I live there is this place is very limited in terms of support, very limited in terms of just like variety of potential jobs. It's a place where there's a lot of limitations in terms of just options and where to pick. So eventually, all of the referrals eventually just start circling around the same few names, which I already addressed, which means I am grateful, which means I didn't have to, take time out of the day to look up more of that or sign up for it, because I or put in forms or things like that, because I'd already done it. I'd already completed all those forms and put in questions and requests and things like that. And at this point, there's only one place left that I haven't gotten any contact with yet. And then after that, I have to look for another solution. I have to find other, potential tool. The person on the phone the other day described it really well. Trying to equip your tool bag, trying to keep things just in case, and plan, and all kinds of things like that. And I mean, I'm starting now doing that. It's not like I'm gonna wait until that, because I don't know when that last place is gonna get back to me on that. So, uh, yeah, planning, looking for other means of support, help, uh, avenues, what other words, potentials, options, things like that. And I am glad for this moment, and this moment to breathe. There's something I learned, which is that survival is not strength. Just trying to survive. Strength is putting up those, not a wall, but setting up those boundaries. It's not just stopping to say, you get what you got. It's trying to make a way for options, and trying to clear your mind clear your space, trying to take care of yourself, trying to, and looking forward to what's out there, and looking and realizing that you have a lot more options than you think you do, and that it is possible to find something. Survival is a meantime kind of thing, but eventually survival is easy. Just surviving. No uncertainty. No, just surviving under someone who will treat you cruelly and in all kinds of ways. And what does survival look like then? It's just breaking yourself down until there's nothing left of you anymore. And then boom, you're surviving, You're making it. In that sense. But it's not the same as strength. And endurance isn't a virtue. Endurance isn't inherently good or inherently bad. Endurance is whatever the context is. There's healthy endurance and there's bad endurance. Healthy endure and bad endure. And a lot of people tend to take it as inherently a positive, but it's not. Enduring is just enduring. It's whatever the context is that fills out whether it's a good or a bad thing. I'm looking up something really quick. That's why I've gone quiet. Yeah. When is strength really strength? When is enduring really enduring? And when is enduring and strength just self-erasure? Self-destruction, When can you say this is not strength? This is just survival. This is just self-abandonment. Sorry, I'm still looking up what I'm looking up. I wrote down some notes. That's what I'm looking up. Yeah. Endurance is not inherently noble. It's morally neutral. Endurance just means you stayed, you tolerated, you survived, you absorbed, you adapted. Endurance is capacity, not a virtue. It can be used for surviving hardship, protecting yourself, or getting through something temporary, but it can also be used for staying in harm, normalizing dysfunction, avoiding change, avoiding grief, and avoiding uncertainty. Endurance is like pain tolerance. It can save your life in some situations, or it can keep you in situations that are slowly destroying you. Endurance is not automatically wise, spiritual, mature, enlightened, or morally superior. But there's a difference when endurance is trying to make it to something better and just recognizing that you have to go through something really quick. Or for a minute, for a spell, for a season, and you're working towards something. But then there's another, it's a completely different thing when endurance is just trying to cope with whatever is happening and going into denial. Yeah. Just because you can endure something doesn't mean that you should. Self abandonment with a heroic narrative on top. That's different, I'd say, from something like resilience. Resilience will protect you, while endurance will sacrifice you if you're not careful with it. It'll just drain you and run you dry. But yeah, I think that's it for today. Well, let me think. I'm one step closer to talking about my interests. I think tomorrow I'll just talk about something that I'm interested in. I had a few ideas in mind of things I wanted to talk about. Um, just just like things I had opinions on, or I thought about for a long time. So I guess I'll list them here before I forget them. One is the game No Straight Roads. The other is Metroid Prime 4. Let's see, the other is Tears of the Kingdom. Another is Dragon Ball. And another is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Which is something that me and my one very good friend have been playing. Well, I haven't been playing. We live very, 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 very far apart from each other, and so we use online stuff. And my friend's able to. Screen share it, and I'm able to watch it as it's going, and I really like it. I really like the writing in it, and I think it's really valuable. I even wrote down some things that I really liked about it, and I know it's good to sort of write down that sort of journal log of more fictional thing. When you're engaging something, writing down a log of your journey with that thing, and things you like and things you enjoy about it. I think maybe if I started now, it would be a little too diluted with some of the more downer stuff that I talked about. Maybe I should just tomorrow, make two different kinds of videos, or two different kinds of recordings and things like that. One for the two different categories of things. But I think that's it for now. And I'm going to go look at some potential applications I saw on Instagram for one or two things. And I think that'll be it. Oh, one thing I did manage to accomplish today is I finished a long running project that has to do with music It's a little complete library now of everything. And after this, there's nothing left for it unless something entirely brand new is created. That's it. There's nothing more to put. I am very proud of the graphic design that I did for it, though. And it's, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's where I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think I'll talk about, make a log of interests and journeys with that tomorrow. Cuz in my personal life, I'm starting to, I spent a long time being really numb and not being able to feel anything and just looking at something, and it was just like math or arithmetic. And now recently my emotions have been coming back. And it feels nice. Before, all I felt was numbness and anxiety, but now I can feel relief and happiness and joy, and it comes with being scared and things like that, but that's just human. Just have to learn how to, have been learning, and I am grateful. And then even doing this is one way of just dealing with the amount of emotions that I've been getting back. And it makes me feel dizzy and winded sometimes, but I like it. Alright, that's it for today. One last thing is, I've had a specific piece of music in my head for a little bit, and I wouldn't mind humming it for just a second. It's the theme music that plays in the final segment of Final Fantasy VI. I think it's called Searching for Friends, I think, and it goes do 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 ah da 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 ba da 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 da. And I really like that melody. Da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 da. Ah, I know I messed that up. Da ba da 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 ba da 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 da. Ooh ah. Da dun dun da 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 da. Yeah. And the other one I had in my head was the battle theme from Dragon Quest IV. Bum 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 dun Bum 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 dum bum bum and bum 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 ba dum bum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum ba dun 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 da da dum bum 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 ba bum 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 bum. And the last one is Marx's theme from Kirby Superstar. Bum 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 ba da dum dum bum ba da dum bum 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 ba dum bum bum dum da 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 be da 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 be da 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 be da 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 be da 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 do do da 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 ba da 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 ba da dum ba da 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 dum ba dum ba da 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 dum ba ba da ba ba da ba da 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 ba da 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 dum bum ba da bum 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 ba da 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 dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da bum bum ba da 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 dum da da dum ba da bum ba da bum 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 ba da 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 dum da da dum bum 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 da 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 da. Okay, now I really feel better now.